Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are around the world, and a huge welcome to today's Postgrad Insight session. Today's session is a live session, as per normal. If you have any questions on Zoom, please put it in the chat facility at the bottom. Brian, who is a member of University of Liverpool, will be moderating that with myself over the next 30 to 40 minutes. If you're watching on social media, whether that be on Facebook or whether that be on LinkedIn, please put your questions in the messenger facility, not on the post, because we will not be able to see the question. So without holding back any further, I'd like to hand you over to Joanna, Jocelyn and Brian. They're going to be with you for the next 30 minutes. If you have any questions, let us know. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. A very, very warm welcome to this session. We're incredibly happy to have you here and having the opportunity to introduce to you our new MSc in Global Housing Design. This is a new program at the University of Liverpool, run by myself. My name is Johanna Musbach and Jocelyn Frojmovic. I will introduce her first. Jocelyn is an architect, multi-award winning architect with extensive practice in New York City, in Santiago de Chile, and currently in Milan and London, if I'm not mistaken. She's also an educator and a passionate housing researcher as myself. My name is Johanna Musbach. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Liverpool Architecture School. My specialty is housing design. That's my research interest, and I'm currently an MArch lead, and I have been running housing studios for nearly a decade now. We are co-running the Housing Research Center at the University of Liverpool. Our enthusiasm in sort of unfolding housing design led to our research, How Do We Live, where we really wanted to understand through a comparative study what was the housing production of the last 10 years, like in various metropolitan contexts, and we will talk about that a bit later. Now, we are at the moment at the brink of launching this master, which will begin in 2025 September at the Liverpool Architecture School. That's a photo of the Liverpool Architecture School, one of the first red brick universities. And definitely the first RIB accredited architecture school in the UK that is ever evolving. And in our next step, we are looking towards a beautiful extension seen at the lower image in the next couple of years. So what is the Master in Global Housing Design? It offers an advanced architectural design graduate course in housing, obviously, for future designers, policymakers at the Liverpool Architecture School, with an optional London pathway in 2025-26. That Jocelyn will talk a little bit more about later. It has a unique holistic approach and a research-led design curriculum. It's a one-year, very intense program focused on housing and cities. The program aims to negotiate the practical, theoretical, and speculative aspects of housing design so as to allow us to rethink what the future of our cities will be like. We really are interested in a program that allows us to give our students tools to rethink housing of the future. It's aiming for excellence and a practice-oriented synthesis of design, integrated disciplines, both from a technical, theoretical, and practical perspective. and to really intervene and allow us to intervene and have a say in the dynamic global landscape of housing production. Where does this take place? Again, at the Liverpool Architecture School, which is a research part of University of Liverpool, which is a research institute. And the Liverpool Architecture School, currently number 3 in the Guardian league table, number 3 architecture school in the Guardian league table. And it's really defined by an incredibly rich tapestry of thematical interests of its practitioners and researchers. These are just some of the research centers that we are looking at, and our students will be able to look into these research centers as through the elective offering, which Jocelyn will talk a little bit later. Who is this program for? We believe that this program is for anyone who is interested in exploring design research as a tool for innovation in housing. Couple of aspects of the program. It is a multi-site delivery program with a provision of one semester in London, but also an international, with a very international global perspective, both represented in the curriculum, the selection of case studies, and also with our immense global network that we enjoy here at the Liverpool Architecture School. At the forefront of the program is diversity and inclusivity, again, both at the level of the curriculum that really highlights relationships that we built with communities and institutions, both in London and around the world and in Liverpool. It's a collaborative program. Again, both we do encourage teamwork at certain moments of the program, but also bringing a very collaborative approach, which we believe is at the heart of the school. These are just, without being very comprehensive, some of our global and national partners, academic, practice-based, or public institutions. And I will hand over to Jocelyn to introduce the program itself.
Hello, everyone. Very nice to be here with all of you. Potential candidates, we welcome all of you to this webinar. We want to engage with students that are ready to tackle real-life scenarios and problems that can envision new ways in which housing production is deployed throughout the world. So the program wants to prepare students to engage in this very dynamic landscape of global housing production, always changing, with new difficulties and problems around the world to resolve. So in this worldwide vision, we really are looking for students that bring their own visions on housing design and bring their own case studies so as to deploy different types of research methodologies in order to tackle specific projects with you. The curriculum encompasses both local problematics, UK-based problematics, and wants to expand those problematics to global context so as to understand and compare these scenarios and these design opportunities. We, in our research, have been focusing in this comparative methodology because we think that the housing design problems across the world have to understand one another because there are many things to learn from one another. So this vision will share with you so as to bring your research forward. The program covers aspects of housing all over the world. We will bring specialists from all over the world to tackle specific research programs with you. From South America, we've been already collaborating with Chile, Brazil. From Asia, China, India, Middle East, we're now expanding. Europe, within Europe, we've already conducted studios in Italy and Eastern Europe. So we really want to bring this global vision forward in the program. We want to expand in the notion that each city is a specific case study, and it allows for housing to be understood in different ways. So that's why we're a very urban-focused program, and we want your research to tackle specific problems in specific cities. We really need to understand how is housing envisioned in terms of how it functions nowadays. We've inherited lots of ways of producing housing from the modernist times onwards that we really need to understand newly. And especially after COVID, we've learned that houses are not used the way they used to be. And so we need to understand them afresh. We want to tackle real issues, life safety. The Grenfell disaster in the UK has hit very hardly. So why not? Why not go into these really delicate issues? We are expecting students to tackle those. And lastly, we really want to underline that this program is tackling ARB and RIBA accreditation. So we really want professionals to join. The program adopts a holistic multidisciplinary approach. We didn't have a master's program dedicated to housing at University of Liverpool, but we did have a very broad range. We do still have a very broad range of expertise. These are some of the publications that come out of the school. So there's a big range of expertise that we want to tackle and we want to bring in the program. And we want to build on the historical research of the university. We do believe that there's a legacy that comes from people like Simon Pepper, Mark Swennerton, John Botton. All professors at the school have done immense research on housing, and that research, that historical perspective, will be brought in the program as well. Next, please. So yes, our research in particular has dealt with global production of housing in the last 10 years. We used a comparative method to understand real case studies of housing being built in London, Santiago, and Shanghai, Suzhou. And we deployed a comparative study based on types. Housing types for us are a tool. This is an image of our exhibition in Sao Paulo, which then went to Venice Biennale and then went to Miami. So it's an exhibition that basically portrays how this global production across the world can be understood in terms of housing typologies and how these actually carry similarities across the world, and certain problematics in Shanghai are not as different as the ones in London or in Santiago, and how can these housing designs understand one another so as to prepare new designs with a larger range of design possibilities. All we want to do is to expand the possibilities of how do we design housing for the future. So the structure of the program, we've thought about it a lot, and it's been a big challenge for us to compress a one-year program that is able to tackle the essentials to prepare students in a way that they become proactive actors in the housing development industry, in whichever way that is in the future. We really want to prepare proactive and engaged yeah, how do you say it? Practitioners. So the structure is around 3 themes, right? Housing crisis. What is it that we are after? What is the problem and what is the solution? Crisis, the term, what it does is that it puts us as authors. So we have to be able to critique, own the critique, and then deploy a solution. Housing crisis for us is a term that will immediately make us turn us into productive people within the problem. So housing types is a framework through which we understand housing as designs that do not come out of the blue. Housing has a history, so we have to learn that history. Typologies have been since the beginning of times, and the more we understand what those designs have been, the more we will be able to produce new ones. So we have to understand the trajectory of a specific housing type to be able to produce innovation. And the last thing, last but not least, language politics. We have to be able to put in words, in images for others to engage. So the more we learn how to conduct projects that are visible and compelling for others, the better. So the program structure is 3 consecutive semesters. We have each semester core modules and elective modules. The first semester you will have a studio and a lecture, both are core, and 1 elective, same in the second. Third semester is just 1 module. You're the owner of the third semester. You will be doing your thesis. So in the first semester, we will focus on the idea of crisis. We will have 1 lecture module on housing history and theory. The idea is that crisis also is historical. So as we understand crisis as plural in different periods of time, our crisis today will become clearer because it's not coming out of the blue. It has historical roots. Then the studio will focus on what is the problem you want to tackle? What is the critique that you want to deploy in terms of housing design? And how will you confront it? And what will be the types of solutions that you will be pursuing? And then you will have a big range of other courses to pick from, anything from conservation, history, technology, environmental studies, urbanism. And we will really work with you which of these courses are more aligned to the kind of research you want to bring into the cohort. So we will work with you so that from the beginning, you will be already envisioning the type of thesis project you will be working on at the end. The second semester will be focusing on typologies and context. So this is it's a very hands-on type of semester where design takes a very big role. So you will basically take the idea of type and from that build an argument in terms of why that particular type, towers, rows, blocks, you name it, and then how do you propose change? How do you envision anew through that particular type? And again, another elective will be there to reinforce any kind of solutions, any kind of innovation you want to deploy. And the last term will basically, So very importantly, we are doing 2 different types of pathways in semester 2. Students that want to stay in Liverpool will do so, and students that want to do a London-based pathway will be able to take that opportunity. So this is a very innovative type of opportunity for us. The London School of Architecture has been our partner institution in London for some years now, and we want to really take advantage of that opportunity. So students will be invited to either do semester 2 in London or in Liverpool. The difference will be that in London, next slide, in London, you will basically do a Types and Research Methods lecture module and Housing Type Studio module. The studio will be dealing with the same type of problematics both in Liverpool and London. And the idea is that both studios take advantage of the cities they are deployed in so as to look at the types and housing problematics face-to-face, real case scenarios, and those will be helpful for you in the cities that you will be studying. Semester 3, very importantly, you will be working on your thesis project that really looks through both previous semesters and unpacks your specific research topics together in a way in which your thesis becomes public. So we really expect the thesis to become either a document, an exhibition, something that comes through to others, and others meaning if you want to go to a specific municipality and show your work and have it be part of the conversation, how do we make that? How do we tackle the specific languages that will be needed to deploy your thesis in the world so that we have impact with our projects? Yeah, Johanna, partnerships.
Yes. Again, our partnerships are incredibly key, both in participating in the input to the course, but also, as Jocelyn highlighted, with our current joint venture with the London School of Architecture really allows us to spend a semester there and tap into a very different network. The metropolitan context is also very important in the curriculum. Because we do believe that by understanding cities where the problems really present in the highest level of intensity, really test the students' ability to form innovative solutions, therefore also increasing their employability if they want to specialize in housing design or research, in fact, or policy making. We mentioned already our collaborations with international partners. Some of our new partners in the Liverpool Architecture Schools include Aarhus University in Denmark, Politecnico Milano in Milan, Lagos University in Nigeria, and we are currently in the process of signing a new partnership with Hong Kong University as well. And some of you might know that we have an ongoing partnership with XJTLU in Suzhou. We do believe cities, as Jocelyn mentioned, are really laboratories for design investigations. Yeah, this is an image showing that this partnership in London is currently ongoing. We have workshops there, and also their students come often to Liverpool. This is an image of the London campus. Some of the practices, housing practices of this network. We would like you to stay engaged in you can do that in many different ways. You can contact us with any kind of questions, but also please check out our ongoing event series at the Liverpool Architecture Schools. All of our lecture series are accessible online, and there is a very good repository of past lectures and events. There are two very exciting housing events that are upcoming. One in January, which will take place in Hong Kong. We will soon, in the next weeks, going to put on a call on our website, but we will make sure that you receive an invite if you are interested in joining us in Hong Kong. And then there will be an international housing workshop and symposium also in Liverpool, where some of our London-based partners are coming to join us, and some of our Eastern European partners looking at post-war estates through the lens of play. And for more information, you have my email. And now I would like to introduce you a very special guest. We are very happy to have her here, Tringa Kelmendi. Tringa has worked with us when she was a student. Now she's embarking on an academic career after years of practice that did include quite a bit of housing. And she worked with us in London and in Santiago in the How Do We Live educational project. So Tringa, are you here? Would you like to say a few words?
Hello, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. My name is Tringa and I'm an architect in London, and I worked across 3 different practices during my career. Just a little bit of a background kind of, sorry, I think my video's just stopped. I don't know if you can see me, but I'm going to keep talking anyway. So I was a master's student at Liverpool from 2017 to 2019, and I was part of the How Do We Live research project. As Johanna mentioned, that took place in Santiago, Chile, and in London. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to kind of take part in this research project and why I found it was really meaningful and useful for myself is that before actually starting to do my master's, well, actually, when I'd finished my part 1, suddenly I was faced with choices of where do I work in the industry, what do I do, which practice do I join, and what kind of sector will I be moving into. And as a part 1 at the time, I didn't have a clue of which type of practice I wanted to join or what I wanted to do. So as many part 1s at the time, what I did was look at the AJ100 and then just start looking at practices from there. And I ended up working in a practice, which was a fantastic practice at the time, had a really great experience. But we focused mainly on mixed-use, high-density residential projects, which were in the private sector. So as I was doing this across the course of 2 years, I found that actually I don't know much about housing, and I'm doing all of these flat layouts, and I don't really know what's being asked of me, apart from we're actually designing to nationally described housing standards and a couple of kind of more formal criteria that we had to meet. We'd have design reviews and we could sit there and look at the different housing projects we were looking at. But again, I thought, you know, what is this all being underpinned by? What am I supposed to be designing towards? And with time in the practice, I started to think to myself, actually, I need to know more about all of this housing stuff. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know what's already been done in the past. I don't know how things have been kind of curated and what the purpose and function of these things are. So when I came out of my part 1 and went back into university, Johanna then approached us with How Do We Live workshop, and I thought that's brilliant. This is really, really useful for me because I can use this time at university to do some really meaningful research, and I can take this back into practice afterwards and help it to kind of inform the way in which I design and the way I think about society. And the way in which I think about how we should be living in neighborhoods and how to kind of get the variations and diversity of different lifestyles living alongside each other. So what we did in that kind of in the research project, which I found super beneficial, was we did a number of different housing site visits, both in London and in Chile. I think we visited like 22 across 2 days, which is absolutely wild. But what it did do is you actually get to see the reality and how these things actually work. Sometimes we'd meet people on the street and they tell us their experiences of what it's actually like to live there, which gives you a great human side of things and a human approach, and how much pride and joy people actually take in living in those housing developments, and how much it's actually impacted on the way they live and the way that the community is actually kind of flourished and enhanced by very simple moves. Sometimes it was something very simple as widening an internal corridor, getting some light in there made a world of a difference. But seeing really, really the reality of how that actually shifted and changed the way people lived was super interesting. So that was fantastic experience, and I was so grateful to have that time to really kind of use that knowledge that we were getting taught and developing in those workshops. And I thought that this is great, you know, this is really exactly what I wanted to do. This is what we're doing in practice most of the times, working in housing, working on housing projects and developing these kind of ideas. So now I can take what I've been learning here and actually go back into practice and start implementing some of these ideas, and just even the smallest kind of shift can make an impact. So then I went back into practice and I was working at Sarah Wigglesworth Architects, which is again a fantastic studio. And we were then, thankfully, I think as a practice, it was already quite socially conscious, socially driven. So kind of developing and discussing these ideas when it came to housing was not that much of a challenge. So we had some really great debates in what it means to have a neighborhood, what community means, and how do we design for sustainable neighborhoods of the future. So especially, I think at this time when I joined, it was 2020, so it was a pandemic, and I was joining at the time of the pandemic when everyone was also questioning how do we live. And I thought, look, we're all asking the same questions now. This is great. We're all questioning our lifestyle, and actually, you know, do these houses work for everyone, and how is this kind of how are we living? There was a lot of housing competitions at the time as well, which we entered as a practice. I think the Davidson Prize again at that time was looking at how do we live. And then so then we had a planning application for a housing association in North England, and it was for 100% social housing. So together with another architect, we started to have a look at, you know, what does this mean in terms of the flat layouts? What does this mean in terms of housing types and typologies? What does this mean in terms of the kind of everyday how people live and work? Because live and work suddenly became extremely important thing to review. But I think what I found is that a lot of the stuff I'd picked up from in the How Do We Live research project ended up helping to inform those conversations, and meant that I actually had the experience and knowledge of kind of typologies and examples of things that had been done in other parts of the world. So I think as quite a brief summary of why I found it useful and how it impacted and why I did it in the first place. Hopefully that was useful for you all.
Thank you so much, Tringa. You've never really shared this with us, so it's very nice for Jocelyn and I to really get this feedback. By the way, on the panel in the background, you can see Tringa's excellent project that was exhibited at the Biennale, which was entitled "How Do We Live Together" in 2021. And yeah, just to close on this high note, Jocelyn and I really believe, and the way we think about cities is that cities are made of houses and homes, and therefore the way to tackle our way to understand and ultimately change for the better our built environment has definitely to do with housing. So the urgency to think about it, to study it, and to innovate in it is then going to be your job. You are the future generation, and we are here to kickstart your journey there with this really exciting one-year-long program. Thank you very much for your attention. Jocelyn, do you want to say a few words?
Well, it's been a wonderful experience for us all these years with students to really, by sharing with students, as Tringa has mentioned, basically we expand our understanding of our own research. And listening to Tringa, I was thinking, oh, it does make a difference, and that's what we want. We want it to make a difference for you as well. So yes, basically we're very happy to listen to your questions and understand what are your future opportunities to work with you. Gareth, I think that you're moderating the next bit.
Thank you,
right?
Jocelyn.
Thanks
Yeah,
so
I really
much.
appreciate that. Joanna and Tringa as well. I think it was a fascinating insight to hear from Tringa, actually. Very rarely, I could see you guys were genuinely interested as well. Very rarely do we get the opportunity to hear from an ex-student, somebody that's done a research project as well. Tringa, can I come to you first, if that's okay? You mentioned the How Do We Live research project. You started in 2017 for a couple of years. How important was that to where you are now? Because presumably, you know, it's important. Yeah, you want to experience what you experience, but how has that enhanced your role now, and how will that help you in future?
Yeah, I think also I'd like to apologize because my audio keeps cutting. So
That's fine.
yeah, I think it was really important for how I look at practice, and I think it extends beyond housing as well. I think there's a lot of conversations that kind of start from housing but can be applied to other kind of different typologies and different ways of thinking about the city in itself. I think there's a lot of conversations that we had in terms of public and private, and what does that mean in housing, but that also can be applied to other types of to other typologies that extend beyond that. And that can go into commercial, it can go into kind of working units, makers units, theatres, community centres. There's conversations around, you know, fronts and backs of housing. Again, that's how you're the relationship to the city and how you design for cities. And there's a lot of conversations around people and neighborhoods and community and how you think about how that's implemented. So I think fundamentally, if you look at it as just in housing, I think it's super beneficial if we're kind of just designing in that specific realm and looking at it through that lens. But if you start to distill loads of conversations that come out of the research that we were looking at and the type of work that we were doing, and start to kind of shift and tilt it towards different types of projects and different types of ways of thinking about architecture, city, and the way we kind of just engage with the built environment, I think it was really super beneficial, and it really helped kind of to also develop design language and a design kind of lens. So yeah.
I'm going to continue to pick your brains. Apologies.
Yeah.
I'll get around to Joanna and Jocelyn just while you're on a roll. There will be people watching that will be really interested in your path and how you got to where you are now. And At what stage did you realize that architecture was for me? Because obviously you would have started from your undergrad course. You then presumably went on to do your master's and then went on to do your research project. So what stage did you decide, actually, this really is something I'm really interested in, with the whole sustainability aspect to it as well?
I think my answer to this is actually quite nuanced. Because I think my interest in architecture actually comes from a very, very early age, from my childhood. My heritage is from Kosovo. It's a war-torn country. I go back every year and watch the country being rebuilt. So I think a lot of my interest in architecture actually comes from watching a city rebuild itself and start from what was understood, not exactly from scratch, because there was kind of a framework there to build off of from. But I don't know if it's kind of helps or is applicable for a majority of people.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But I think for me it was watching a city get rebuilt and seeing the impact that architecture does have on people's lives and communities and families and neighborhoods. And seeing that actually you can draw something and people come together and things get built, and the way it shapes society and communities and moving forward. So I think from a young age, it was more about actually, this is incredible. I can't believe that you can just do this as a career and you can actually impact on people's lives like this in your own and society. So I think that's where the majority of my kind of passion for it came from. But yeah, I think.
Super. And I think that will resonate so well with so many people around the world. You know, there's so many conflicts and so much going on around the world at the moment, and no doubt that will relate to a lot of people. Thank you, Tringa. Really appreciate that. I'll let you breathe for a moment. We'll come back in a bit. Jocelyn, Joanna, I'm just going to go through some of the questions that have been asked, just so that we can kind of reel them off. One of the questions that came in is, do you provide an option for work placements? Your typical course, let's say, will say, 1 or 2 years, and the second years is more hands-on. Is that something that you guys provide? And if you do, who do you partner with on a local or global scale?
The program is 1 year long, so one might appreciate that within a 1 year long intense program, work placement doesn't really cannot be really integrated. Yeah. It's really, but I have a twofold answer to that. One is that this program is really for people who have who want to expand their experience in work and in academia, specializing in housing, and you will be throughout your studies introduced to an array of practices. So if you are smart, you take advantage of that, and it's an opportunity for you to build your own network. And we believe that that is the best way to increase your chances to get employed and to allow you to really work and introduce yourself to practices, is by integrating the practices into the program rather than outsourcing the students to practices. So if that makes sense, that is the way I would think about it. Just, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think that we're tackling a very niche subject, and that allows you to go to practices of any kind, from government to academia to offices, if you're more interested in practical design, industry, if you're interested in a specific material, wood. We have many students that have gone into wood research and then go into industry, focalized into one specific technological aspect. So that's the beauty of doing a niche type of master's program, is that then you, in a very focalized way, you can go to different types of work opportunities and show your work. So that's what we're looking after.
Okay.
And you will get, sorry, just to add to that, at the end, you will have that in your title. You will have an MSc in Global Housing Design. So that is a sort of expertise that will forever be on your CV and on your title.
And if
Yeah,
we
no,
think that housing also, sorry, Gareth.
no, go on, no, that's fine.
If we think of housing as being built all over the world continuously, right? It's the industry that is the first one to boom every time there's an economic crisis. The first thing we see is housing. Once the economic crisis is a bit over, then we see housing being built. So it's continuously on. So that's where we want to be.
Sure. One question that's come in is about scholarships and funding. It's always a popular one. There will be links in the chat here, no doubt, to go to the relevant websites. And I appreciate, Brian, if you could put that in, that would be great. I will relay that to the social media viewers. There will be people watching that will go, I want to follow the same steps as Tringa, and I want to go on the same research project, same type of research project. How does one get involved in that? And how can one fund or get financial aid with that? Because that will appeal to a lot of people.
So I am relying on Brian to put all the options in the chat, so as regarding how to fund your one-year study. What I can tell you is that both the university and the architecture school itself is constantly increasing scholarship opportunities and various funding opportunities for students. And once you are part of the program, there are quite a few funded events and research projects. Our research projects are always funded. That didn't cost, when Tringa was part of the university, didn't cost her extra money. That is part of the program. However, I do want to say that doing a master's and any kind of specialization requires also time in investment. It's an investment into your future, in a part of architecture that we think is probably the most prolific and the most crucial. So yeah, a lot of aspects to this question.
I also want to
go on, Joss, go on.
Yes, so I also want to say we encourage students to look, coming from outside of the UK, you have lots of opportunities in terms of funding that you should explore. Both Johanna and I were students abroad. We both had our master's program funded by different institutions, and it requires a lot of work. It requires you to be convinced that you want to do that, to go and get funding from different places. So if you're interested, please contact us and we will try to find ways in which we can help you out and try to find the ways and paths in which you can find the right funding for you. I think that in the UK, we count with the expertise within the university, and from outside, there's always different opportunities that you must challenge yourself to find, basically.
You took the words out of my mouth about international. You answered my question for me, but I want to elaborate further on that one, because you two mentioned there that you're both study abroad students, ex-students. Presumably the name University of Liverpool will attract a huge amount of attention from international students, being the standing it has. How diverse is the student population within your course, and how easy does that make it for an international student, knowing that they're not alone, because it's so international, there's so many different nationalities and cultures, that it will help them settle in?
Well, I don't have the statistics from the top of my head, but I do have the statistics from just a random, in our current March 5th year program, we have more than half of the course consists of international students. It's a very, very international school. I don't even know how to stress that. Both our BA and our MArch programs and our PGT programs definitely we have students from over 50 countries around the globe. And I definitely, the way Jocelyn and I think about our teaching, we absolutely rely on students' experiences in relation to how they live. And one of the reasons why we like teaching housing is because everybody knows about housing. Everybody brings a very unique perspective, cultural, functional perspective as to geographical perspective as to, or environmental as to how they grew up, how they lived, and definitely that is very much part of our global and international curriculum. And our student body is in Liverpool is a very diverse one, and I think that is what our strength is. And not only our student body, but our staff. We have, incidentally, we have more international staff members. You can hear it on our accents as well. Than people who were born in the UK, and I think it is an incredibly immersive and inclusive environment.
Excellent.
For us to work in and for students to study.
We're going to wrap things up. I'm going to let Tringa have the final say, if that's okay, because I think that it's only appropriate that, given what she's been through and where she's been with the university, that I give her the opportunity. For those watching, Tringa, there will be people watching now, and there'll be people watching in the next 6 to 12 months that are not sure what to do, perhaps. What was it that made you choose this course, or the Global Housing Design course at the University of Liverpool, potentially over other institutions? And what would you say to those people that aren't sure as to what to do if they're not sure on a research project, let's say? So I know it's quite a few questions in there, but I'll let you kind of wrap up in terms of how you felt that whole process was, and why a student that's not sure should go for Liverpool.
Yeah, I think for me, I think I touched a little bit about it earlier in terms of why I picked the research project. And I think for me, it was understanding that actually this is a lot of the stuff I'm doing in practice. And this is a lot of the types of projects that I'm working on, and I'm going to be working on, because I do really enjoy working on housing. So it's, unfortunately, when you're in practice, you just don't have the time to do the research. So you don't have the time to do the as meaningful research as you would like to, and I think as what is actually necessary and required. So for me, I found kind of being part of the research project hugely beneficial and meaningful time for me to invest in developing my knowledge and having time to do that research that I think is really important to then bring back into practice and implement in the way in which we design. So I think that's probably one of the most fundamental reasons as to why I chose it and why I was working on it. So I think, as I mentioned earlier as well, I think it extends beyond just your knowledge in terms of housing as well. I think it goes into and touches on a number of different ways in which we design and the way we think about things, and the way we think really critically as designers as well in the city. In practice, we're working on a lot of things, and unfortunately, a lot of it is just working on planning applications, getting councils to kind of agree on these developments being built around the city, and watching these things get built. So as designers, I think we've got to really, I think it's really important that we think about things socially, and we have a kind of a really big kind of social importance in the way in which we design cities. So I think for me, it was definitely, how can I become a stronger designer? How can I impact a society in a positive and a meaningful way? And I think being part of the research project is why I specifically chose to be a part of it, working with, seeing how the students work in it too. So yeah, hope that was helpful.
Thank you very much. Jocelyn, Joanna, and Tringa, thank you for your time. Tringa in particular, thank you so much. I know it's time out of your day, and really appreciate that. In terms of if anyone has any questions around this, there are a couple of links. There's a scholarship link in the chat. There's also a link on how you can potentially apply moving forward. Brian, if I can just bring you in very quickly at this point, just to explain when the intake dates are, when applications will open and so on from there, just to kind of wrap up, and we'll finish with that.
Yeah, sure. So the applications for this course don't open now for September 2025 until a little bit later in the year, and they'll have an application deadline for international students by the 31st of July. Probably should mention as well, in terms of accommodation for master students, we actually do guarantee accommodation as long as they apply by the 31st of August. So there's a little bit of time after the application date in which to register for the accommodation as well. But the course is not actually open live for registrations at the moment. So the link that I've just put in the chat, you can go in and register your interest, and as soon as applications do become live, we will contact everyone and make you aware of that.
Superb. And the fact that applications aren't live yet doesn't matter that much, because you offer accommodation. So that's half the battle won. So that's fantastic.
And just to touch on that, we also do offer award-winning accommodation as well. We've, in the last couple of years, really invested quite heavily in that provision. So most of the on-campus accommodation in particular has seen massive refurbishment, and it really is our commitment to our students' experience that we offer such industry-leading accommodation as well.
Superb. Everyone, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Brian, thanks for coming on at the end and explaining that. We look forward to seeing you again soon. This will be on demand. If you've missed anything, if anyone has any questions, head over to the Postgrad Solutions Facebook or LinkedIn page. It will all be on there, along with a full video of full session of this video. If anyone has any questions, we will be emailing you, along with Brian and the team at Liverpool as well, with all your details. So any questions, give us a shout. But for now, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.